PocaTV. Wenzzzday.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, could you please turn down your little speaker?
Down? Really?
A little, just a little. Thank you.
I can hardly hear you. Okay.
Oh, you can't? Okay. Hi again.
Hi.
I guess we're both a little on tenterhooks for this one, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wish events had not led us to to having to do this particular topic that we're doing today. But
Yeah.
so it goes. We decided that we couldn't really ignore it.
Exactly. So we did go back and forth about, what it would mean to do it and how we would do it. And
Yeah.
like you said, we decided there was no way on earth that we could ignore the situation in
Yeah.
Israel and Gaza at this moment. So that is what we're going to talk about today.
Mm.
We have promised ourselves that we would keep it as non-political as humanly possible, and
We will try.
We will
try.
I know it's inevitable. I know some
Mm.
here and there we are going to have to say something that has to do with why this all happened or what should be done. But
I think if we just try to stick to the what rather than the why, if we can do that.
Yes, and even more specifically in the what, let's just try and stick to what happened to people like you and me, right?
Yeah.
People going to work, going to school, going out on a date, going to a festival.
Yeah,
that's when
a peace festival, ironically. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you introduce what happened ever since last Saturday in Israel. All right, go ahead.
Well, a whole heap of things happened. Basically, to précis it, Hamas operatives infiltrated themselves across the Gazan border by either foot, by jeep, or by hang gliding into mainland Israel, and indiscriminately murdered, raped, kidnapped, beheaded babies, set bodies on fire and burned them to death, took people from their homes, kidnapped, of all things, Holocaust survivors.
If I may, that's the whole story in one sentence. Let's start what happened on Saturday, the festival.
Right. Yeah, well, yes. One of the incidents was at a music festival, which happened obviously on the Israeli side of the Gaza border, which was, I think, attended by about 3,000 young people. And what happened was during the festival, and this was in the daytime because it was daylight. All the footage we've seen is in daylight. Hamas operatives hang glided into the festival site and just started shooting people and kidnapping people. And the pictures you see here are festival goers effectively running for their lives towards the exits in their cars. But then I don't know if you have pictures later of where the cars were destroyed as well. I can't remember. But this is what you're seeing here is images of some, that's blurred images of some of the dead bodies in body bags. So it was a dread with a capital D thing that happened. And as a result, clearly the Israeli side needed to formulate some sort of response. And as of to date, that response has been all about dismantling the Hamas infrastructure so that such an event cannot happen again.
Okay. I got a couple more pictures of what happened over the weekend. More of the same attacks by Hamas on Israeli targets. And as you were mentioning earlier,
Really? That looks like an attack on Gaza. Is it that attack on Israel?
according to the caption on the picture, it was. And
Okay.
and you were mentioning the kidnapping. Tell us a little bit about the kidnapping. These are a couple
Yeah,
of
as far as we know, the last reports I saw, they said there are known something like 160 Israelis are still haven't been located, either dead or alive. So the assumption is they are hostages and in the hands of,
or they're dead, or they're dead.
and probably taken to Gaza. They're probably in Gaza somewhere now. And so that's actually made any response more complicated, because from an Israeli point of view, they have to be seen to be prioritizing the release of their hostages above anything else, because it's their duty to protect their own citizens, as it is with any sovereign government. Just like Hamas, it's their duty to protect their citizens.
Right. So
democratically elected governments.
Yeah. So the response by Israel to what happened over the weekend and in the days after that was to retaliate, as you said, and they bombed Gaza. This is what happened to Gaza.
Yep.
And on that side, I'm not even going to go with numbers, but huge numbers of dead people on both sides. Okay.
I mean, as of now, as we said off air, for what it's worth, there are more Israeli fatalities than Palestinian, but that's going to change, and it will probably end up the other way around anyway.
I don't care about how many on either side. I care about one on either side.
Yeah.
That's the way I try to look at this. Okay. So this is what happened in Gaza. When Israel retaliated, they bombed a holy Ting, and we're seeing comparable pictures from the Gaza civilians as we are seeing from the Israeli civilians. The reason I am stressing the word civilians is because that is my only concern in this. It's about innocent people, afraid for their lives, children, crying, dead, whatever happens to them. Okay, so that is the situation. All right, your thoughts?
Well, my initial reaction when I first woke up to the news, it was Saturday morning, I think. I couldn't quite believe what I was reading, that it was on such a vast scale. And my initial reaction was, how on earth did Israeli intelligence not even know about this? An operation on such a huge scale, when Israeli intelligence is known throughout the world as to have the so-called best intelligence in the world. How could they have not known that this was impending? And there have been stories about, well, Egypt claimed that they warned Israel 3 days before that something was going to happen, but the Israeli government have obviously said that's fake news. Who knows what to believe these days? And then I started looking. Obviously, I tuned in. I was on the internet and looking at some of the reports and the videos and the footage. And I knew, just based on not just how many casualties there were, and not just based on the fact that they'd infiltrated into Israeli territory across the Gazan border, but the methods that were used. And that's what struck me more than anything. Decapitating babies, even Nazis didn't do that. Okay, they gassed them, but you know what I'm saying? It is nothing to do with an act of resistance. And this is what Hamas and the Palestinians have always been claiming that they are oppressed, which I accept they are, and I accept that. But this is not the way to go about expressing your dissatisfaction and grievances, and in the name of resistance. It is not an act of resistance to decapitate babies' heads. It is not an act of resistance to go to a music festival with unarmed young men and women and just shoot and kill them indiscriminately. It is not, and I could go on. You know what I'm saying.
Yes, and I would like to respond to that, because these things
Mhm.
happen all the time in war. In fact, there are many very clever people who talk about rape as an act of war. There are people working on that being banned forever. So it is not unprecedented, is what I would like to say. Maybe it's unprecedented in Israel. I could grant you that, but it is not unprecedented in the world.
Well, the difference between what's happened in Israel now and what you just said, that it happens elsewhere, is because it wasn't a war until Hamas struck on Saturday. That was their declaration of war. That started this war.
That started maybe this battle, is what I'd like to say, because
okay,
I think
this phase of the conflict.
Yes, right. So let's go way back now, DJ, because we must in some way put this into some kind of perspective.
Yeah,
you have to bear with me on this.
Yeah.
What we call Palestine used to be so much bigger. I will show you two maps, and how those two maps, according to me, this is just me talking, and I'm going to try to be detached from this, okay? If I am not, please call me out and I will grab myself by the hair.
All right.
This area, if you get the right-hand map, you can see the shape of Israel, yeah? As we know it now.
Correct.
On the left hand, the whole area that is yellow, that used to be Palestine.
British control, yeah.
The British came, and I'm not really even sure how that happened, but that is one of those Babylonian
British Empire colonialization. That's it.
Yeah. So they had mandate over Palestine. You can see in the top part, you can see the French also had a part of the mandate. The first question one can ask, and I definitely will go there. The first question one can ask is, why on earth are the British and the French even there? Why are they in charge of that area?
Why were they in India? Why were they in Africa? Why were they in the Caribbean?
Exactly.
The colonialization, yeah.
And it's interesting that you point that out, because it was the Brits who decided that what we call Palestine was to be the place where Jews could start their own nation.
No, it was the Brits that proposed it. They didn't make the decision. The final decision was ratified by the League of Nations and other countries in the world.
Which is why I said a Babylonian construction.
And it had to be voted on. So it wasn't just about what Britain wanted. It had to be voted on.
But in historical context, the Brits at that point in time definitely had the upper hand. The Brits decided, let's not do the whole area. We're going to leave what is on the right-hand side, the green area, which is now Jordan and Syria, I believe. And we're going to leave that out of the equation and create this what we now call Israel on the west side of the River Jordan. You can see the River Jordan on the right-hand map, right over that, above that lake. You can see the River Jordan going from,
Yeah.
So the orange part became the area where the Brits said, let's have the Jews start their own nation there.
In unison with the existing inhabitants, which included Jews, and the majority at the time were Arabs.
On paper, it was to be in unison. But we must not forget that it's the same Brits who did exactly this when they went to Ireland. They came over, we said, we're going to be friends and we're going to work together, but they didn't.
No.
It's very comparable. The way what we now call Israel was colonized is very comparable to the way the Scots and the English colonized what we now call Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
So those methods are exactly the same. Then what happened is the following. We can see how
this is what we're dealing with. Look at it. Look at
yes, the yellow parts. The yellow parts are Palestinian, and the green parts are, I'm going to say, Israeli, right?
No.
Because the whole difficulty is because we are talking about Israeli, we're talking about Zionists, and we're talking about Jews. Those are three different things, and we should not confound them into one thing.
But hold on.
I need to talk this. I need to finish this. Right. Many people call this thing an anti-Semitic thing. I don't believe that is it. I believe it's a question of settler colonialism. And this, in the history of this world, has never gone right. Now you can talk. Right. I'll take a swig of water.
Looking at those maps, you said it was It was Arabs and Jews and some Christians as well. Even in the
Palestinians and Israelis, what I'm going to call them.
No, hold on. When it was Palestine, you can call them Palestinian Arabs or Muslims, Palestinian Jews, even Palestinian Christians.
Which is why I say Palestinian. I'm not saying it's Muslims. Right. We are not making this into Muslim against Jews, because I don't think it is.
No, I was just trying to clarify, to make it easy to distinguish, because what we call Palestinians now is not what we call Palestinians then, because Palestinians then included Jews and Christians as well as Arab Muslims. That's all I was trying to illustrate.
That is what it was like in these days. Exactly what you're saying. Exactly what you're saying. And before, for thousands of years. Yeah. That area has always been
it's a mixture.
Yes, it has always been the epicenter of the three large religions in the world. Yeah. That is why I say yellow is Palestinians of whatever religion. Right. And green is Israeli of whatever religion.
Okay.
But look what happened on the maps.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
Now, this definitely, I'm not choosing sides for now. I mean, in my heart, I definitely choose sides, but I'm not going there today. What this is expansionism by a settler colony.
Right.
Have you ever lived in a colonized country?
Well, I live in Jamaica, but that's independent now, so I have to say no.
I mean to say, have you ever lived in a country where you and your family were doing whatever it is that families do, and suddenly a second party says party number 3 is now allowed to live next to you and do whatever it is they want?
I haven't.
So it's very hard for you and I to feel what that is like. Right?
But we can try and imagine.
I can try, but I'm not.
And I have family there who I talk to who tell me about it.
Yeah.
And so they're on the ground.
That makes it personal for you. I understand that.
No, but it also gives me real, information.
Yes, but it gives you information from your relatives, which
which could be partial or impartial. Yeah, fair enough.
Which I would definitely understand if it were partial. They are people too. But what happened with the maps I just showed you is exactly what you were saying. We then changed with this expansion from a situation, left-hand picture, of people living together under circumstances that were what they were, and they dealt with them what they did for thousands of years, to a situation in which suddenly the original inhabitants of the area were told to be trespassing every time they put a foot outside of their boundaries. I like the right-hand picture. Let's take a look at it. It says things are not always what they seem. The deer isn't crossing the road. The road is crossing the forest.
I know. I get that. I get that.
So
I get
once
the
again,
message there.
yes, what it says to people who may or may not understand the picture, what it says is, if an external event changes the geography of your home, it does not mean that you are suddenly trespassing. It only means that suddenly there's a line drawn somewhere that others can say you are trespassing. That is what the picture means to me. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, go on. I'd like to know where you're going with it, though.
No, I'm just taking it as an example of how it probably feels for the people being colonized. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so in history, what has gone on ever since those two the maps I showed you, is things have been happening from one side, and then the other retaliated, and then the other retaliated, and then the other retaliated. And that's been going on for, you did the math, I'm counting 1922 as a start.
Yeah, it's
You
about
saying
100 years.
let's count after the Second World War, which is when actually more and more Jews came as settlers.
75 years.
75 years. So it's been 75 years of turmoil, DJ, and that's where I'm going to start counting. But you were talking about this starting on Saturday, so I'd like to hear from you what you mean by that.
What do you mean? No, I was just talking about the attacks. I thought you knew that. Just the specific Hamas attacks, which triggered this whole situation.
You said it started the war. That's what you said.
Because what they did, that by virtue of their attacks, was a declaration of war. And that's when Israel responded and said, "We are at war."
If war is already ongoing for 75 years, how can this suddenly then be
it wasn't.
start of the war?
Well, it depends how you define war.
That's why I'm asking. How do you define war?
I mean, when Northern Ireland, to take your scenario about comparing it to Northern Ireland and Ireland, when the Irish were dropping bombs in Northern Ireland, that wasn't classed as war. That was just classed as a conflict. It wasn't classed as war.
Why are you classing this as a war?
I'd like to know the
difference in your mind.
Because of what Hamas did, the nature of what they did, they went a step too far, and they knew that Israel would retaliate. They're not fools that way. They're not naive. They knew there would be retaliation, but they still did it, and they knew there would be huge retaliation because of the scale and of what they did. They knew. And they did, and then Israel responded and said the nature of these attacks was to that effect. What has happened is so barbaric, unprecedented. In fact, and they even said on that day, more Jews were killed on that day than any other day since the Holocaust. And this is obviously an emotive situation for them.
Yeah.
So that's when Israel said, "We are at war," and Hamas said, "Yeah, we're at war." They agreed. So this is a full-on war. It's not like it was last Thursday or last Friday. Everything's changed. Hamas took it to another level, a completely new level, and they now know that they've made it very, very clear that they're not interested in peace, because if doing what they did is their way of saying we want peace, then there's no hope. And I'm not saying that Israel wanted peace, because deep down I have thought for a long time, and if my family are watching this, they're going to castigate me for this, but I felt for a long time that I don't really think the Israeli side want peace either.
But they don't.
But even though
because DJ, let's be fair. If peace was what they wanted, you cannot make peace by making war. If peace was actually what they the Zionist government of Israel wanted, once again, it's about organizations making the lives of innocent civilians a disaster. If peace was what Israel wanted at this particular moment, they would not have obstructed the way to healthcare for people dying. They would not have
Well,
cut off electricity and water.
look, you know what? I agree. In fact, I was talking to someone the last few days about this, saying that I actually condemn Israel for cutting off the water, the electricity, and the food, which is what they've done. The fact that the Gaza has reserves is negligible. The reserves will be negligible. Yes, their hospitals have some water reserves and food, but it's inhumane, and it's almost like two wrongs. They're trying to say two wrongs make a right. It's totally wrong, and I condemn Israel for that. So this is one area where people seem to say I'm so one-sided. Well, that's one example where I'm demonstrating I'm not one-sided. I'm also against the fact that the state of Israel happened in the first place, going back to 1940. I'm not a Zionist, but the fact is, and again, my family probably won't thank me for saying that, but that's how I feel. That's how I feel. I don't know what the answer would be in terms of where the Jews would be if Israel had not happened. I have no idea. I don't have a solution for an alternative.
I wonder if there is a solution. Let me put another little tiny little thing into context. The Gaza Strip, as it is now, the Gaza for Palestinians, because Israel has taken little pieces of it bit by bit. It's an area of, I have to check this, 140 square miles.
Yeah.
The city of London is 600 square miles.
I know it's jam-packed and it's overcrowded. I know where you're going with this.
2.5 million people live in that place, which is a quarter of the city of London. And DJ, in a situation of war, at least people can try to escape. Where are Palestinians living in Gaza going to escape to when their borders are controlled by Israel, when their airspace is controlled by Israel? They can't even jump in the sea because Israel controls their coast as well. What about that? What about...
They go to Rafah crossing in Egypt. That's open, and that's why they're saying go to Egypt.
Well, to get to Egypt, they still need to cross a line. They still need to go into the other volatile area called the Sinai Peninsula.
There are plenty. Right. Okay. This is where it starts getting convoluted, really convoluted, and even more complex. Because in spite of propaganda on one side of the fence saying there are no safe places for Gazan civilians to hide and to be safe, that's not true. That's propaganda, and I can't prove it, but I challenge people to prove it the other way as well.
Well, I challenge you to explain to me how you can escape if you cannot cross the border.
I say you can. The Rafah crossing against Egypt, they can go there. They can drive. They can go by camel, whatever. What?
How do you get your camel into Egypt if you have to cross the Sinai Peninsula where Israel is in full effect?
Yeah, but they're not just going to indiscriminately shoot people who are trying to flee.
Why
they're
not?
After the Hamas operatives. This is where it gets. Yes,
no.
They are. Then are you suggesting that
they're after children? They're after buildings. They're after civilians as well.
No, they are not. Come on, that's a misconception. So what you're saying is Israel are deliberately targeting civilians.
They're deliberately targeting Gaza, an area of 140 square miles with 2.5 million people living there.
Okay. Let's look at another side of this then, right?
Yes, I'm gonna pull up Donna's question. Donna has a question. I'm gonna put it to you. Why not end the occupation?
How will it end?
Go ahead. You think
and
about
how
that.
can you and how can you guarantee security for each side, not just the Israelis but for the Palestinians?
How can you ever guarantee security?
Well, at the moment, and not just because of what happened Saturday, there is no evidence that the inhabitants of Gaza and indeed the West Bank have renounced their charter for the destruction of Israel and the killing of all Jews. I mean, that's paramount. They have to retract that. Otherwise, how can you live, even talk in the same room as those people who want to kill you? That's in their charter. It's their charter.
Yes, their charter is, like you were saying earlier, to protect their people from occupation.
No, but their charter is also to kill Jews and destroy Israel. That's my point in this show.
Yeah.
So how can you expect people to even sit down and talk and sit in the same room as people who have just killed and murdered your 3-year-old daughter or decapitated baby? It ain't going to happen. It's not realistic. It's changed. Saturday has changed everything. It will never be the same again. It will never be the same again.
You feel that what happened on Saturday was disproportionately different from anything that happened in the 75 years?
Do I feel that it's disproportionately? I'm trying to understand the question. Do I repeat that?
I'm saying, and you like to be a devil's advocate, so give me that. If the tiny little piece that you have left of your territory still gets nibbled at left and right, how can you defend yourself, your family, your children, your auntie, your grandmother?
Well, that's down. You're talking about the people in Gaza now, aren't you?
Yes.
Right. Well, their government that they elected, that the first duty of any government is to protect and safeguard its own citizens. Now, if that government chooses to use its own citizens as human shields, and you're going to say there's no proof of that, and I'm going to say
no proof.
You can't disprove it either.
I'm going to stop you there, because we did discuss this, DJ. I said we're not going there, and now you're doing that. That's not fair.
Well, but
because
I think that's very relevant.
Proof. You have no proof. You have
I will find it for you.
And then you can come back to it. There is no proof of that.
Because that is a huge issue in this, a massive issue.
Yes.
They do not care about their own citizens.
No. That's you being very emotional, okay. Which I understand.
That's me falling for propaganda. Fair enough. All right. I'm wrong.
I'm not saying totally falling for propaganda. I'm saying, for reasons that I totally understand, you are Jew and you've got family living there in Israel.
Oh, because I'm a Jew, therefore my assertion must be wrong because I'm being biased, because I'm emotionally one-sided. Is that what you're suggesting?
You're very emotional because, which I would be very surprised if it weren't the case, because you have family there who are terrified.
No. And here's another thing. People misunderstand me. It is not just because I have family there. I repeat this. Even if I didn't have family there, my Jewish connections are still in me, and I would still feel this bad. When that branch of my family emigrated from London in the 1970s, they knew there were risks. They knew They knew their children would have to serve military service. They knew their grand and great grandchildren would have to serve military service, and there were risks. They chose to do it. So that's their choice. They chose to live in an area which they know is very volatile for whatever reasons. It is what it is. It is, and history, it is. It's a fact. So it's not because of that. It's because I just feel it's inhumane what these people have done. Decapitating babies' heads, for crying out loud. How can you negotiate peace with people like that? You cannot do it.
You sound as if it's the first time ever that you heard about such a thing going on during war.
So
it happens all the time.
So it doesn't make it right. So I'm expressing why.
I'm just saying. If you know that it happens more often, I've never seen you in this state that you are in right now.
I didn't. In terms of decapitating babies, I'm sure it does happen, but I'm not aware of specific examples. But even
Nigeria, Sierra Leone,
Okay,
Congo,
so that.
Rwanda.
No, I wasn't doubting you. I wasn't doubting you. I
No,
just said I
I'm
couldn't.
saying I'm pointing out your
Yeah,
indignation, and I'm even putting it into context for you because I understand why this would be more emotional for you than Congo, Rwanda, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and all those countries. But
yeah.
it's the same thing, is what I'm trying to say. It's
Yeah.
the
So,
same thing.
but the response, maybe the Israeli response is tougher than the responses in those countries, Sierra Leone and the other places that you
Well,
mentioned.
Israel only
But
has the most sophisticated army in the world, so yeah.
well, yeah, of course, because it's their job to protect their citizens.
It's every country's job to protect their citizens.
No,
That doesn't mean
but
that, that does not mean that they actually do that.
okay, you name me a country in the world other than Israel that every country surrounding it are their enemies.
Well, like I said, I don't know any other country in the world where, based on religion, a country was formed.
Yeah,
I looked it up. Many people say,
but,
yeah, there's a lot
but
of
religion has
Muslim
nothing to
countries,
do
but
with this.
it does. It
No, religion
does.
is a pretext. It's a pretext. It's nothing. It's not
It,
actually to do with
but religion, and that's what makes it so murky. Religion is definitely what is being used behind the scenes to
Yes,
make this
that's the
so volatile.
pretext. That's the
So
pretext. That's what I mean by the pretext. Yeah,
to make this so volatile,
yeah. Yes, I agree. It stirs it up. Yeah, for real.
and then we mustn't forget that the West does love Israel. I mean, that's why they helped create it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You'd be. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So big deal. Why? What's the point? Sorry, I'm getting. What's your point with saying that?
The point being that I'm still calling it settler colonialism,
Mm,
um, instigated and facilitated by the West. And that is
right.
why we are now all, I'm not saying you,
Yeah.
but why everybody in the Western world is now so totally worked up about this thing, as
Right.
as opposed to all
No,
those
and
other wars,
no,
as
but
opposed
and
as opposed to all those other wars I talked about
right.
earlier.
There's a big difference between what's happening here and those other wars, and then this and
What's
what's
the
happening
difference?
here.
What's the
The main
difference?
difference, is that in the past, when you've had a conflict like the Yom Kippur War in 1973, it could lead to World War III. In Sierra Leone, that ain't going to lead to World War III, or Armenia, or some. I doubt it somehow.
When Congo, Rwanda, Sierra Leone will lead to World War III, when they
Go on.
suddenly say, you know what, you're not getting our natural resources anymore. That's when the West
And
will sit up and take notice and
they'll
be
invade them.
be just as indignant about any war going on there as they
Right.
are now
Okay.
for this
All right.
and Ukraine.
But there's also another pretext in
What?
which makes the situation in Israel unique compared to others, and alas, that is the Jewish question.
Well, there you go. Donna says, and I think I must agree with her, especially as we know that most of the Jews colonizing Israel are non-secular. Donna says they should have been assimilated into Palestine. They shouldn't have been allowed to form their state based on religion when most of your people are non-secular. And this is where it
No,
gets so
wrong.
very
They are
murky.
no.
This
Most of them are
this is where
secular.
the hmm?
Most of them are secular,
I
not
mean secular.
non-secular.
Sorry, I said it wrong.
Right, right.
Most of them are
Okay.
secular.
Yeah,
So
I
for
agree.
most Jews in Israel,
Well,
the
okay. So what?
Judaism is not their first
No, I agree.
priority.
I agree. Zionism is an excuse to use Israel as a homeland for the Jews. But
And
I agree with that. But hold on, go back to her comment, please. Can you just get
yeah,
back on?
mhm,
She says the Jews should have been assimilated into Palestine. I
mhm,
agree, and that was the plan, but it didn't work.
mhm.
And why didn't it?
And why didn't it work?
Right,
Because of Zionism.
right. Well, no, I disagree with that.
Okay, then I'm very eager to hear
It
your take on
no, it
this.
didn't work because, and we said this off air beforehand. but you said you didn't know about this, and you challenged me to prove it to you.
I did not say I didn't know about it. I said, and I'm not going there because I still think it has nothing to do with this.
I think it's everything to do with it.
All right, so you say what you have to say, and I'll just sit here.
I think it's everything. No, to Donna's question specifically, it has everything to do with it. Why did the Jews not just assimilate with the existing population, which included Jews, but the majority were Muslim? Why did they not assimilate? They wanted to. That was the plan. Then, because of the creation of the State of Israel, the Arabs, the Muslims, as opposed to the Jews and Christians who were living in Palestine at the time, took offense to it, and understandably. Like you're saying, how is it if you're going to be all of a sudden colonized? Mm-hmm. And the creation of the State of Israel triggered the 1948 War of Independence, and that's when the British just took off and said, we don't want to have anything to do with this. We know it's going to be a nightmare. Yeah. We're washing our hands.
Like the Brits always do. They create chaos, and then when it happens, they say, no, it's too big for us. We're not going to do it.
I agree. But anyway, let me finish.
The majority of the original Palestinians were, at that point, Muslim. So go ahead.
2/3 of the population at the time. Right? And about something like maybe a bit more than a quarter were Jewish, and the rest were other religions, mainly Christian. But the majority were a large
majority. Yeah,
the majority were the Palestinian Arabs, the Muslims, and so that war happened, and that war was fought by an Arab coalition which included Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Morocco, even Cuba were involved. Even Cuba, because it was Russian backed. Remember the Russian and all of that. Even Cuba were assisting the Arabs.
Most of the countries you are now calling Jordan, Syria, are originally what we called Palestine. Remember? Don't forget.
Yeah. So they were fine. They were surely, because there was a history from their perspective that it was once their land and it had been, diminished their own territory.
No, let's call it what it was. It was stolen, DJ.
All right, stolen, appropriated, stolen. Fair enough. So that Arab coalition were fighting the British and the Israeli forces, and this is what most Palestinian propaganda completely omits, is that the majority, not all of them, but the majority of the Palestinian Arabs, the Muslims who were living in Palestine at the time, were advised by the Arab coalition to flee on the grounds, on the pretext that, don't worry, it will be fine. You will come back when we are victorious and win the war. Guess what? They didn't win the war. And during that war, I don't know how many, but a lot of the Palestinian Muslims who were living in Palestine joined the Arab coalition to fight Israel, making them aggressors towards Jews and the Israeli forces.
But do you think that's all perfectly okay, what you're saying? I mean, I'm not contesting that. But do you think that whatever it is you just told us there about the Arab countries saying, you know what, go away, we'll win the war and then you come back, how is that in any way an excuse for Israel to do their expansion? How?
What do you mean, like Gaza?
Look at the maps.
Yeah.
So I'm taking on board what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
every Muslim fled to a little corner. How does that allow Israel to say, "Oh, they're gone. Let's take over"?
No, it does. No, it doesn't. But
it happened. It happened.
Yes, and because what should have happened is that all those Palestinian Arabs that were advised to flee or were driven out. Some of them were driven out by Israeli militia. I admit that, but that was a minority. But however,
be specific, because what you're saying is very time specific. What period of time are you talking about?
What? Sorry.
What period of time are you talking about? Because this is not what's ongoing.
1948 war. That's what I'm talking about.
48. exactly. And look at the maps. The one with the green bullet, that's what happened after that. And I'm asking you, if it is,
no, it's
I'm
not.
not contesting you. How is that a reason for Israel to go,
The
yay?
green bullet is before 1948. It says 1947,
47, exactly. Okay,
which
right.
is
Yeah.
before the War of
But look,
Independence.
the one next to it is 1948.
Yeah.
And the one on the total right is 2000, what is it? 12.
Yeah.
How do we get from 1948 to 2012 if it's not the Israeli government pushing away more and more into their corner?
Well, I agree. I agree
Okay, so
that
that is why I said it has nothing to do with this story. That is why I said it might have
well,
been
no,
the instigation, but we have to be honest and say Israel took that moment and then said, "Let's go." What's going on?
well, it does have something to do with the story, and the reason is because had all those Palestinian Muslims who fled thinking that they were going to come back, i.e., the right of return. That's where that all stems from, the right of return, which is their main grievance. Then those maps that we see post 1948 would not be how they are now, because those Palestinian Muslims would be living side by side with the Jews and the Christians and everyone else. That was the plan.
No, there was expansionism going on, armed to the teeth, with the best military in the world, with the best intelligence in the world. At least that's what they pride themselves on. Against people who are even separated from each other. You got the Gaza people, you got the West Bank people, and in between, the two cannot reach each other. That's the problem.
Oh, you're talking about. Oh, right. So you're talking about the West Bank as distinct from Gaza.
It is distinct
No, I
from
know, but
Gaza.
I didn't realize we got onto the West Bank. I wasn't even
I
factoring that
am
into my
talking about
thoughts.
Israeli expansionism after that moment in 1948, when
Well,
the Arab countries tricked their own people. Let's put it that way,
well,
tricked their
you
own
had the
people.
6 Day War in 1967.
Yes.
When I think it was, I can't remember now, Jordan and Syria or something invaded Israel, trying to take back land, but they lost heavily. And then and that was when they retook the borders that had been relinquished previously. That's when Israeli took back the borders, including East Jerusalem, and that's how. And I think that's how the enclave, if you want to call that, of the West Bank, where a lot of the West Bank Palestinian Muslims live, that's how that came about. It was because of those two wars. I think it was in 1967 that redrew the borders, or was it 1973? I always get it confused. I think it was 67.
The borders are still being redrawn as we speak today. It's
I
an
know, and that
ongoing
is
thing.
wrong. That is wrong, and in my opinion, and the
I
persistent
believe-
settlement building by Jews is completely wrong. Pure provocation. I
not
disagree
by
with
Jews,
it wholeheartedly.
by Zionists. Please,
Well,
let's not make this in. You're making it
okay,
into a Muslim Jewish thing,
true,
DJ, and we're
because
not
I'm
doing
Jewish.
that because
I'm a non-Zionist Jew. Fair enough.
exactly. But you must. We promised each other that we were going to keep this clean, and you
Yeah.
cannot
Fine.
go doing that.
Fine.
Another question by
I made a
Donna.
mistake. Sorry. Fine.
It's all right. Donna asks us, why deny the right of return to Palestinians, expand, then allow migration from Jews from anywhere in the world?
All right. If
What is the reason?
if Palestinians renounce their charter to kill all Jews, then that's a good start. But until they do that, if the Palestinians renounce the Hamas charter, which says to kill all Jews, then that would be a good start. But until if that never happens, then they can't be taken seriously in terms of potential peace.
You're doing exactly what always happens in stories of colonization. You're putting the onus on the colonized people. Remember, they were infringed upon.
All right. So I'm a Jewish person, Zionist or not. Okay, whatever. Living in mainland in Tel Aviv. And then Palestinians are granted the right of return. And all of a sudden, I'll go back to what I said before. My next door neighbor happens to be someone who was either murdered, one of my friends or family, or knows me. How is that going to really work? How is that going to really work?
It has it. The only thing I know, DJ, you're not going to stop war by going to war. That's the only thing I know.
No,
It is
but
not going to happen.
Well, we'll see. I mean, this is one. All we've been discussing throughout this whole show today. We have highlighted, even Donna's comments as well, has highlighted why this whole situation is not as straightforward as people think. It is not as straightforward as things. Oh, given the right of return, and everything will be hunky dory, and everyone will live in peace. Because that's very naive, and and that's not realistic at all.
But
and,
I would
so
like to bring.
Why do you think all these remember one of the reasons why the West, particularly America, was so keen, in fact, many reasons, to be Israel's ally. There are many reasons. One is the Jewish thing. The Jewish vote in America is always important for whoever's running for president. But the other thing is Israel is the only, allegedly the only so-called democracy in the region.
Please can we be a little less
well, I'm just giving you the reasons that I believe that they are, and the other one was because
no. You think Israel's a democracy? Is that
well, in the true sense of the word, democracy.
Do you?
You can vote. You can vote for any politician you want or for any party in that sense.
But who wins? Netanyahu. We can all go to the ballot and Netanyahu wins.
Yeah, so your point being,
when that happens in Turkey, we call him a dictator.
Well, I don't.
Yes, you do.
Hold on. When what happens? Say that again.
When a whole country goes to the ballot, but the same guy wins every single time, we call that person a dictator.
Well, it's not that. No, it's not that. It's not that cut and dry, because he doesn't even have a majority. It's a coalition.
Yet he's the boss.
Well, someone has to be the boss.
Yeah, but I'm asking. My question was, do you think Israel is a democracy? I'm saying it's as much of a democracy as Turkey is, because the same guy keeps, or Russia is, or the Netherlands have been for God's sakes for the past 15 years.
Russia is communist. Russia is communist. To suggest that Israel is like Russia.
I'm talking about I'm talking about going to the vote and because that is how you were defining democracy right now.
No, but no, hold on. In Israel, when you go to the polling booths, you can vote for one of a huge, I don't know, 20 parties. That's one of the problems. There are too many parties. In Russia, there's only one person you vote for. That's Putin.
Okay,
that's the big difference there. That's the point.
That's why I say we can. It's best to let's not compare it to Russia.
But the other reason that I didn't touch on, I wanted to mention, in terms of why America and the West are so keen on supporting Israel, is another one, is because of the closeness geographically to the oil producing countries, and that has always been a factor.
Yes, and remember on how many levels the United States is making money from said oil.
Absolutely.
First, it's taking the oil. Secondly, it's creating all kinds of war in that specific area so that they can sell their arms. And then thirdly, the West will swoop in to reconstruct the area after war. So this is
with them and win all the building contracts, just like what happened in Iraq. And no, I get that totally.
This here is an over 80-year-old cartoon. Just study it there.
What am I looking at here?
You're looking at where the money is going, not to healthcare, not to education, not to science, not to arts. It's all going to war.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting imagery. I mean, look, it's common knowledge to me and you probably that war is not just about winning the war against your enemies, but it's about making money as well. And wars. You know, for example, banks love wars. They make more money than anyone else during wars.
Countries love wars. US love war. I mean, it's happened so often in history, DJ. that a war in somewhere in the world suddenly happened right after the Americans came to check out stuff. Who is to say what part the US have in this thing? I'm saying the West. Let's not target US before
Well,
I got a bullet in my head.
the obvious answer is Israel need America for their assistance in helping them with military arsenal, with arms.
And keeping off all the
that's no
Arabs.
secret. Sorry?
And keeping off all the Arabs. That's what Israel needs the United States for as well.
Keeping off all the what? Sorry?
The
What?
Arabs. The Arabs that surround them. The Arabs on whose land they came to live.
Yeah, look, I agree. Since going back to those maps that I'm not saying you should put them back up, but reflecting back on those maps that you put up, I agree. The areas of land where the majority of the Palestinians are getting smaller and smaller. And that's why I said, for example, in the West Bank, I completely condemn, I'm going to use that word, I condemn the Israeli approved policy of expanding Jewish settlements in those. Is pure provocation, completely unnecessary, and they know it's only going to end one way, and it's going to end in grievances and fighting.
So why do you condemn it for the West Bank, but you don't condemn it as fiercely for Gaza? I think Gaza is worse off.
No, because Israeli settlers are not going into Gaza to build settlements. That's the difference.
Well,
they are in the West Bank.
No, but they have.
Yeah, but you're saying by virtue because
the whole city of
the
Tel
border
Aviv
lines have been expanded in towards Israel. That's what you're saying.
The whole city of Tel Aviv is proof of that. That used to be.
Well, but I think the expansion of settlements in towards the Gazan border has been halted for a long time. It's the West Bank where the big expansions are happening now, not down in Gaza.
Well, they're still nibbling.
Maybe. I don't know for sure, but it's nowhere near on the scale it used to. I know any scale is wrong, but the big scale is happening in the West Bank. That's where, in places like Hebron, which you probably hear about in the news every now and then.
Yeah.
So
I want to take this a little step further, DJ, because we've touched on it a couple of times. This whole thing would not be happening without the West butting their big fat noses into it all the time. Are you in agreement with me on that, at least?
Probably.
Yeah. And I'm saying that because, as usual, when things happen, this is what happens in the West. There's another cartoon there. All the media, they're doing a whole report on what's going on. I'm saying it's a 10-minute report. 8.5 minutes of this is the Israeli side of things, and to appear to be impartial, they will then end their little story with and some children dead as well on the other side.
All right. So okay. I'm looking at that. Oh, sorry.
Let me continue. The middle picture shows what is actually going on right now in the Netherlands. Government buildings are putting up the Israeli flag. How is that not partial? Today,
I agree.
Today in the Netherlands, our Minister of Justice and Security has said that any demonstration on behalf of the Palestinians is to be extra monitored. How is that not partial?
How is that not what? Sorry?
Partial.
It is partial. It is partial.
So this thing is so much bigger.
Hold on, no. I wanted to go. Can you go back? I haven't finished.
Okay, go.
I want to address the first cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, what that cartoon is trying to portray is that BBC and CNN are filming a Jewish guy, a Zionist, let's say,
a baby
who is crying, and the people on the other side of Gaza have been killed, mutilated. They're chopped off. What is that image trying to demonstrate? That only Gazans get mutilated like that and get killed like that, and
No, that
Zionists
they don't
just,
get the coverage. That they don't get equal coverage in the news is what this is
well,
saying.
I challenge you to watch the news more carefully, especially the BBC, because the BBC is one of the most loathed reporting media news outlets for Zionists. They loathe it because they say they are actually more biased pro-Palestinian than
Well,
pro-Jewish.
I've been watching BBC News all week, and it is, as I say, in a 10-minute report, we get 8.5 on crying babies on the
Yeah.
Israeli side, and 1.5 minute on, by the way, rough
All
stuff
right.
going on as
I
well in
saw a
Gaza.
BBC report 2 days ago, which was 5 minutes long, from Jeremy Bowen, who's their long-serving Middle East reporter. It was almost split 50-50 down the middle. It was something like 2.5 minutes showing the Hamas attacks and the aftermath in Israel, and maybe 2.25 minutes of showing of the damage and all the murders and the buildings turned to rubble in Gaza. So it was
Even
even.
so,
It was balanced.
even
Yeah.
so, even so, if you start your every report with the Israeli side, that is showing partial. I know because I used to work with the news, as you know.
Well, they have to start with one side. How did they decide without appearing impartial then?
You could do Monday Israel, Tuesday Gaza, Wednesday Israel.
Yeah, but this is news as it's moving and as it happens. Everything is happening so quickly. They just want to get the news out there.
But the top news is especially this week, the top news is Israel is suffering from this. The top news is not Gaza is suffering.
Well, yes, it is, and it's because of the nature and the scale of what happened on Saturday. That's why.
But it's always been this way, DJ. I worked in a newsroom for 15 years, and we always started with Israel and then said, "Oh yeah, by the way, Palestinians."
All right, and I get that, and I don't, and that's probably wrong to always start with one side and not the other. So on one news report, they should start with one side, and the next news report they should start the other side to give it a balance. But it doesn't change the content of what's being reported, just the order in which it's being reported. That's all.
Oh, but those are rules in journalism. By always starting with one story, you are prioritizing that story. And that is why you get situations that, at least in the Netherlands, I don't know if other European countries have done it, there are now Israeli flags on government buildings. And our outgoing prime minister has even said he's appalled by the fact that not every municipality has put up their flag.
Yeah.
What they should have done, if you want to show sympathy for what is going on with, I'm saying again, human beings on both sides of a wall built by Israel, if it's about the human beings and the appalling nature of what is going on right now, don't put up anybody's flag. What you can do is lower your United Nations flag halfway. Now that would have been a proper way of showing respect and
half mast. Yeah.
Half mast. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Because this is what does Donna say? It's subliminal. Yes, it's partial. It's not even subliminal. It's saying we are with Israel and we are against the Palestinians. That is what this flag is saying.
Well, I can't vouch for how the news organisations decide what to report in what order. That's down to them. Whether they're breaking protocols, which perhaps you're suggesting because you're saying in journalism it's supposed to be balanced.
I'm saying it's in the interest of the West to choose sides with Israel. That is what I'm saying.
It's also in the interest of the West to know that a democratically elected government has decided that it's justified to go and kill and shoot and kidnap and rape and behead people, innocent, unarmed civilians. That's a newsworthy story. Just like 9/11 was newsworthy.
It is not the Palestinian government that did all those things. It is Hamas who did all those things.
Hamas are the Palestinian government in Gaza.
No,
they
they are
are.
not, DJ.
They are in Gaza. The Abbas controls West Bank. Hamas were democratically elected in Gaza. There are two Palestinian governments.
Yes.
Hamas in Gaza and the Palestinian Authority in West Bank, who is run by Abbas. And Abbas is of different Muslim caste to Hamas, and that's one of the reasons they don't see eye to eye, because of the caste difference. That is a religious thing. But Hamas were democratically elected. They are the democratically ruling, recognized government of Gaza.
Yeah. Do you think it's MPs that went out and beheaded babies, or do you think, or do you think it's?
Wouldn't surprise me.
Why do you say that?
Well, because the leader of Hamas himself has applauded what's been going on. The leader of Hamas repeatedly calls for the killing of Jews and the destruction of Israel. So if the prime minister, I think he's known as the prime minister, you know, he is supposed to be setting an example.
I'm going to check this. If you let me, please go on.
All right. Okay. So the reason, while you're looking for this, in my opinion, the reason why the media outlets, the TV stations, the newspapers are focusing their headlines on the suffering of the Israelis is purely because of what happened on Saturday, not the retaliation. It is unprecedented. As I said, people have dubbed it as Israel's 9/11. When you look at the proportions of people killed in 9/11 to the proportion of the population in America, and then you apply that same proportions ratios to Israel, it's not very different. It's major. Okay. It's major.
Yeah. And what does that say to you?
That is, to me, that justifies the head carrying the swing in the headline news. To me. Since Saturday happened, Israel have responded, and it's their right to respond. It is their right. First of all, the most important thing is to rescue the hostages. That is their number one goal, and it's very difficult. Very difficult. The chances are, I don't know for sure, but Hamas have got them with them so that they can use them as human shields. I can't prove it, but
no. So stop saying it. No, really, you are breaking our rules here now. That's not fair,
okay,
DJ.
Okay.
Stop saying that.
Well, wherever the hostages are, they need to find them and try and rescue them without harming them.
Yeah,
and that's very difficult. Very difficult.
And it's not going to help bombing the place, is it, to find your hostages?
But that's an unfortunate consequence of war as well. It is not. When wars happen, innocent people always die in wars. That's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah. So okay, devil's advocate, because you are really, really pushing me into a situation where I am the one now defending the whole thing. And that's not what we agreed we would be doing, but you are doing it. So I'm going to go there. It works on both ways, on both sides. What you said just now, that things can be, that things, when brought to a head, there's just an inevitable way of responding. That works on both sides.
Right.
Okay. So let's not go there, is what we said we would do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
All right.
I got carried away. Right.
Yeah, but you keep doing that, and you're pushing me into a situation that I have to choose sides, and I'm not choosing sides on this. I'm trying to figure out what can be done. And we're over an hour into the show. What I do
want to be done? What can be done?
I want to first show one last picture. You mentioned Jeremy Bowen of the BBC. He sent out a tweet with a picture of the cars outside the military base.
I've seen
reservists have been called to report for duty.
Reservists,
reservists, sorry. And this, I totally understand, touches you in many different ways, because
as I said before, just because I've got two the daughters of a cousin who may be called up, it doesn't change the way I feel. If at the point that they do get called up, then I probably will be more what's the word? More interested. Let's say that's not the right word, but you know. But until
Emotional.
they do, no, interested, showing more interest.
Mm.
Emotive. Okay, fine.
No, I said emotional.
I know. I said emotive. All right, fine. Whatever.
Yeah,
Splitting
because you
hairs
must
now.
agree with me. That's just the point I really want to make. I've never seen you this way. I've known you for 20 years. We've had a whole heap of wars going on in the world ever since I met you. I've never seen you like this. So
And the reason is,
yes, you are taking it personal, which I understand, but please don't go saying that you're not taking it personally, because you are.
the reason you haven't seen me this way in the past in relation to other situations in Israel, Gaza, and the Palestinians is because there has never been a situation like this.
Yes,
it is
there has.
unprecedented.
You want the list again? Rwanda,
No.
Congo, Liberia, Sierra
No.
Leone.
In the region. That's what I'm talking about.
I am saying that it being the area is what's making you so worked up about this in this way that I have never seen with you.
Because it happens to be.
Understand. Huh? What?
No, go on.
No, you say what you just said.
No, that was. I stopped midway because I knew it was the wrong thing to say and I didn't mean it. It was a mistake.
I think it's because it's personal to you, and that's totally valid.
Well, whether or not it's personal, the fact remains that what happened on Saturday happened, and it's going to take a long time for people to even start to try and forgive so that they can move on. That I guess that's why I'm emotional. It is despicable. That doesn't even cover it. For once, I actually agreed with something that Biden said when he said pure, unadulterated evil. I actually used that word in that phrase in a Facebook comment the day before, and then lo and behold, he said it. I actually agree with what he said, and I challenge anyone.
And I say that is not an attitude that's going to help anybody. We can look at South Africa.
No, it's inflammatory. Absolutely,
we can look at South Africa and see the only way out is for one, preferably both parties, to say stop the war.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that's going to help. Let's sit down and talk this thing over, and let's stop pointing fingers at each other and saying, yeah, but in 1973 you did that, so we're doing this today.
I agree.
But that's what's going on.
I'd love it to happen, but I don't think it will, not in our lifetimes.
Well, if it happened in South Africa, it might as well happen in Israel, is what I'm saying. Jaap says, in fact, nothing has changed since Arafat's time. We've been thrown back 30 years in the negotiations. Yes, yeah. And let's not canonize Arafat either, though.
No, but hold on. What? No, Arafat is actually very. Now he's mentioned it, is quite significant in all of this, because Arafat and was it Yitzhak Rabin when they signed the Oslo Peace Accord with when Clinton was president. I think it was Clinton.
But Arafat's been along for a long time, and let's not forget he was buddies with the states, right? He used to go to Camp David all the time, and he was buddies with the states. So I don't want to canonize.
That was all in the name of politics. They weren't real friends. That was in the name of politics.
I don't know. Anyway. I don't know what it is that politicians do behind the scenes.
Arafat was slaughtered after it was found out that the money, the aid, the millions of US dollars that he had been receiving to help the infrastructure for the Palestinians ended up in his personal bank accounts.
Is what we heard in Western news. I'm gonna doubt anything I hear or read.
All right, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means it might not have happened. Who knows?
That's
we don't
what I'm
know.
saying. It might not have happened. So
fair have happened, but fair enough.
This is the answer. This is the only answer.
Yeah, man.
And I'm definitely saying I hope that Israel and Palestine can at least look towards South Africa because it's a very comparable situation. I'm not saying it's apartheid because before we know it, I got somebody outside here wanting to kill me. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's as difficult as the situation was in South Africa.
It's more
not
difficult. It's much more difficult and much more complicated.
Why? Because you're going to put the religion in between?
Because, well, religion is one reason. I wasn't even going to say that, but yeah, you can throw that in. But the other reason is because in where the location of Israel is all the other Arab and Muslim countries who have a grievance with the state of Israel and its very existence. In South Africa, it wasn't about other countries. It was just an internal conflict, you know,
no,
on apartheid, black and white.
You're very gullible. There's a reason why South Africa was so important in those days. That's not just
gold.
Yes, and its location geographically,
right, okay.
all of that, and the same applies to Israel.
Right. Okay. So, but you see, anything. Put it this way: any potential peace agreement between the Zionists, as you call them, and the Palestinians has to be ratified by the Arab coalition.
Yeah. And so far, nobody's been asking them what they think about it. The West has been imposing the right thing to do on the Middle East for as long as the Middle East.
And they've been keeping very quiet. We hear no
it's
news
not
reports.
Even the Middle East. It's just the Western countries calling it the Middle East. It's the center of the earth. It's the center of civilization. It's the center of every big religion in the world. That is the center, and we are the orbit. So
they're watching. The Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iran, all that. They're watching on. They're keeping quiet at the moment. They want to see what transpires before they make a move or say something.
And I dare to go out on a limb and say it's their part of the world. Let them do it. That's my final word on this. It's their part of the world. Let them do it.
It's look. If I was involved in 1948, if I was asked, should it happen, should the state of Israel happen, even being Jewish, and it was clear to me that if it did happen, and we had a crystal ball, and all the problems that have happened since then, and the redrawing of maps and lines and borders and everything else, I would have said no, don't make it happen. But then the question would have become, so what's going to happen to all these Jewish people? I do not know the answer to that.
What would have happened is what the situation was before this happened. Jews were all over the place. There was no Jewish nation.
But the majority of the Jews that ended up emigrating to Israel were from Central Europe, and there were obvious reasons why they did not want to stay in Central Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Germany, France, Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even some in Russia, you know.
But it's not because Europe waged war against Jewish people that then Europe can go and say, you know what, let's put the Jewish people there.
Because Germany waged war against Jewish people. The Nazis.
Yeah. And so did every country collaborating, DJ. You must be a little less gullible.
Sorry, what were you trying to say?
I'm trying to say that everybody was against the Jews, and probably still is.
Yes, but nobody.
These are very old things.
But nobody dealt with the Jews in the way that the Nazis did.
No, the Nazis brought it to an extreme. That is true.
The final solution, as they called it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So keyword solution. Bloody hell. Because it wasn't final, because many Jews survived to tell the tales.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there is no easy solution to this. There isn't. There is no easy solution to this. Anyone who thinks there is I say, are deluded, are kidding themselves.
They are, yes.
And I just hope that somehow there will be an outcome with minimal casualties, because there will be some, it's inevitable, but minimal civilian casualties on all sides. And I say it's not just two sides we're talking about here. Lebanon's involved with this as well, big time. and they're drawing themselves with Hezbollah more and more into this. But let's not go there for now.
No, it's all of the same. It's all of the same. It all goes back to this was our land, and now it isn't anymore.
I know,
That's what it boils down to.
I do sympathise with with Palestinians or any Arab nations, people, when they say something or do something against the Jewish state and they are accused of anti-Semitism. I sympathise with that, because in my mind, anti-Zionism is very different to anti-Semitism. Yes. I am not an anti-Semite. I hope I'm not, but I am an anti-Zionist. And the two get overlapped too frequently.
Yes. I think we can shake hands on that, and we must never forget that Muslims are Semites as well.
Yeah, and the irony is the majority Ashkenazi Jews are not Semites anyway, because they're from Europe. But it's a word. I mean, it's very much like.
No, but you know me. I like to be very specific about words, because words matter. Yes,
me too. And that only today I saw something, and I've said this before, where an Israeli Jewish person was saying, racism against Jews is not the same as racism towards other groups. And I said, but racism it is not racism, because Jews are not a race. And I keep saying this: it is not a race. What do you say? You have a black Jew and you have a white Jew. How do you separate that then when that happens?
Well, I know that the black Jew is going to have the black Jew is going to have a harder life than the white Jew.
Probably, sure. But all right, fair enough. We can end on that note, I guess.
We must end on this note, and I must notify you that next week I am unable to do a Ting because of work. So our next,
that's probably good, because it'll probably take all that time to even recover from this one.
in it, I'm exhausted. So the next Wenzzzday Ting is going to be on October the 25th. For God's sakes, let's look for something upful to talk about, because. Our good friend Rosalind left early. She probably couldn't take all of this. So
really? She said that? She said that?
Yeah, she said, what did she say? Let me show you.
It was too intense for her.
She said, no. She said, I leave you all in peace. But I know Rosalind gets all worked up about these things. Peace. Right. Let's put up the peace sign in every language that counts in this situation.
Coexist.
Stop picking fights with your neighbor. Just be a normal person. Just be nicer. It's very easy, if you just take out all the hatred and the jealousy and the it's your fault, and no, I was here first, and no, you did that, so I'm gonna do this. Take all of that away and just go, hi there, neighbor. Hi, how are you today? I have some food left. Do you wish to share? Which I've seen happen in Israel between Jewish people and Palestinians living together in kibbutzes.
Absolutely.
They were living together.
My very same aunt, one of her closest friends, who's a neighbor, is a Muslim. Is a Palestinian Arab who didn't flee, who remained there. And they go and have meals together or stuff like that.
And that's what they should be doing.
But ideology is a wonderful thing if only it is realistic.
Well, I guess I have to end where I always end. Just give women 50 years to run this world and we'll take care of all of this. Because you know why I'm saying that? The notion of revenge, the notion of it's not my fault, the notion it's your fault, the notion I'm not going to listen to you because you did the thing yesterday. Those are very male traits, I have to say, DJ. Give women 50 years to run the world and it will all be better. I hope.
Well, I remember if you look at Golda Meir, who she was a woman. It was all about the blame game with her.
Yeah, but she was a woman playing the man's game. I'm talking women doing the women's thing. There's very few women leaders in the world who have not played the man's game, and they are my favorite leaders. The women playing the woman's game are my favorite leaders.
Thatcher.
That's a whole
Was she
different story.
do you think Thatcher was playing the man's game or the woman's game? I think it's the man's game she was playing. Yeah?
Sure.
You agree?
Even
The
the way
man's
she
game.
talked, she even
Yeah.
went to elocution lessons to learn to talk like a man. Come on.
I
Anyway.
didn't know that. Really?
Yes, she did. That's enough for today, DJ. I'm exhausted,
okay.
and we don't know
Okay.
the answers, but we've been talking for an hour and a half almost.
Yeah.
So
Okay, blessed. Thank you for watching, everyone.
What I really love,
Mm.
we're still friends, DJ. We're showing
Of
people
course.
once again, we're showing
You
people
can disagree, but doesn't mean that doesn't mean it ruins your friendship. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, everybody. See you on the 25th. I promise I'm going to come up with something pinkish and fluffy and cute. And DJ, maybe do 2 fun stories next time.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
We'll see what happens. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for now.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.